Good morning, everyone. I first would like to thank you, NMI, for inviting me here. As those of you who know me, I'm very keen to see progress in UK in the electronic system sector. And NMI, I believe, is a very strong platform to help with that. And ESCO, in fact, was very much, NMI was a catalyst for ESCO coming together from a number of companies. With respect to electronic systems, I mean, it is a well-known fact, and if you don't know it, you should, that almost any product around the world, I would say 90% plus, will have some kind of technology from UK. You know, our colleagues at ARM, I think, I noticed Warren here. I mean, he's no longer with ARM, but the effort in the past many years, and companies like us and others have been able to get the technologies that we have in many platforms. And of course, this is beyond silicon IP. It's software, system design, power technologies, etc. And I think that is very good. It certainly creates businesses that have global scale. It creates influence. But it's not really enough because, as you will see, I think we need to do more. But that requires an understanding of where the success or money is and how we can migrate from the platform we have today to beyond that. And of course, the successes UK technology has isn't in mobile and consumers, it's in pretty much everything. Now, I think Minister had a good summary of ESCO. As an industrialist, I just wanted to reiterate that we certainly see this a very significant event in the history of electronic systems in UK. Not only the report brought up a lot of the issues, there's now a council, a leadership council that is actively taking this forward with Warren at the head of it, and I'm doing my part to help. And of course, this involves many industry parties, and of course, one of the significant aspects of ESCO, it also involves trade bodies, specifically NMI, but of course, others, including Tech UK, are actively involved. And government, I couldn't ask for more support. And personally, I can tell you from the conversation I've had with the Prime Minister, he's totally interested in this. And if I look back 3 years ago to today, the difference is this sector is now, actually this is a sector which wasn't before. It was a cottage industry that no one knew about. Now it's visible, and that's very important. Now, I've often used Korea as an example of comparison with UK. You might ask, does it make sense? But there are some interesting parallels. It's roughly the same population. So in terms of manpower, and brain and energy, there shouldn't be really much difference. But if you look at Korea, in the last 20 years, it's been one of the fastest growing economies in terms of the sectors we care about, electronics. Not only it's been very successful in technology creation, it's also created some of the most significant brands in the industry from zero. So Samsung, LG, Hyundai, I can give you a long list of those. An interesting thing you note is every sector they tend to aim to be number 1 or 2 or 3. Number 5 or 10 wouldn't do. Having interacted with Koreans, my view of Koreans is they certainly appreciate the enabling nature of the technology. I think if I go in High Street in UK and ask about technology or electronic systems, I don't think I'll get very far. If I talk about X factor, I think I'll actually be able to have a conversation. In Korea, you can talk about technology with people. I remember first time I went to Korea many years ago, my driver in the taxi, he was very keen to demonstrate his new navigation system. And he started flipping it into TV and showing me that he could watch TV. And he was doing that while he was driving at 70 kilometers an hour. But the passion, was really coming through. I think also Korea people understand long-range planning is key. A company like Samsung hasn't happened through a sort of short-term plan. And of course, the global brand being important. What we need in UK is the same, which means we have to have an understanding of the importance of the technology. We have to have a long-range plan, and we need to aim beyond just creating good technologies in terms of enablement. I think the good news is, I think the industry understands that. We are now a sector, and the government also is taking note and is supporting that process. Now, I did use this slide several years ago, but I decided to use a sort of variant of it again, because I think this is central to anything we need to do in terms of policy or technology development. So what I've really tried to do here is to say, imagine you go in the shop, buy a £100 product. It could be, I don't know, a radio, could be a phone, could be anything. Okay, my numbers are not, I'm not claiming everything is precise, but I'm within 20% of the reality of the market. So if you pay £100, £20 of it would go to government UK tax. So the only way to improve on that is to ask to go back to colonial ages and start taking over the rest of the world and collect taxes. So I think there's not much we can do there. Now, if you go back, then the retailers, roughly, I mean, some of them get less, some of them get more, make £26 out of every £100 you pay. So they are very important. So my attitude to that, good luck to Tesco's and Marks and Sparks as they go global. Amazon is doing the same globally. So the retail's a big chunk of money machine, and we should never forget that. Of course, we need to make sure they pay their taxes as well, but I leave that to the politicians to do. Consumer brands is the next, roughly about £20. That could be Samsung, excuse me, could be Samsung, could be Apple, etc. And if you look at UK, we have some smallish one. Dyson, you have a little bit in imagination called Pure. We don't really have mega consumer brands. Then you go further back. The products have to be shipped around. Of course, software is important. And I think we're doing reasonably well. But there's the scope in it is not huge, but it's obviously very important. Manufacturing of the product, mostly done in China these days, is about £5. Excuse me. And then you go back, you get to fabless semiconductor companies. Again, I've rounded these numbers. Some people may make less money, some people may make more. Roughly speaking, this is. So there's about £18 in there, and £8 of it goes to the foundries, TSMCs and such like. And then you have design IP, which is about £2. Okay, I've missed some of these little items around here, but you look at this, you can roughly see where the money is. So when we plan the future, the next generation, future and welfare, in any country, you have to look at that and make sure you are in the right parts. And so we have a good platform in UK in terms of technology, IP, and design. And you can see the importance of those. The technology is certainly enabling, but what is really, really important is for UK to be more in areas such as fabless semiconductor industry or the consumer brands. And a lot of these need to be global for the reasons I've explained. Now, the reason I did that slide, because I think it sort of highlights the big food chain, supply chain, and what is really important. Now, what I've just said isn't just about today's market. This is a continuum. So what we really need in UK is to seriously invest in new products, which excites consumers. And if you look at successful brands, that is what is going on. Also, the business models are changing. The fact that there's cloud business, there's internet. We've moved from a point that devices didn't matter only 5 years ago to now connected devices are everything. So new business model around the internet and cloud is very important. And the goal should be creating international brands, whether it's for UK, any country really needs to understand these dynamics and work on that basis. Now you then may say, okay, that's all great, but where are the opportunities? I think there's plenty. In fact, I think there's an inflection point with plenty new things coming. For example, connectivity. I think one of the biggest revolutions in the next 3 to 5 years would be the home connectivity, where the TVs will disappear in the wall. You get wireless everything, and your phones and tablets and speakers, and the screen would be the center of the way things will work. A lot of the older products would be obsoleted, and the world would be different. There's huge opportunities there. Robotics, and particularly computer vision. I believe that's a huge, huge area where it needs not just technologies in terms of camera, etc., but also computational stuff. Extracting analytic data from cameras, etc. Of course, another area that UK could build on is customized manufacturing, which is very important in some of these segments. One of the areas very close to my heart is healthcare. In UK, we have one of the biggest organized healthcare service on the planet, and I think it's very important for that platform, if you like, be used as a collaborative area with the industry and creating new technologies and opening possibilities for companies and startups and then going global with those things. ADAS. I don't know how many of you know this is assisted driving. I can guarantee you within 5 years you won't be able to buy a car that does not have assisted driving. It'd probably be legal requirement. And having sat in some of these things, we're pretty close. Within 6 to 7 years, you'll have cars driving around without you doing anything. And these kind of devices have a lot of sensors in them, a lot of computational technologies, cameras, so huge opportunities. I think I'll leave the IoT and IoE for later. I'm sure that's covered, but that's about everything getting connected. And of course, collecting all the data and usefully using them. So my view of it, some people may say, the semiconductor industry is tough, etc. I actually think the opportunities ahead are massive. It's about solution. It's about combining semiconductor, software, and the cloud algorithms together and dealing with these completely new areas which are creating massive, massive opportunities. Now, in terms of imagination, I don't really want to turn this into an imagination presentation, but I certainly want to give you a sense of what is it we're trying to do in the context of what I've just talked about. We absolutely focused on a lot of the next generation areas, the wearable devices. As you can see, some of the pictures here, or car ADAS system with very clever technologies detecting people or cars and objects and stopping before there's accidents. There are connectivity technologies coming specifically for car, that 10 cars ahead of you or 10 cars behind would know the car ahead of you is stopping, and therefore you will never ever get pileups. Of course, talking about smart home and bringing a lot of advanced graphics to reality, et cetera, and healthcare. So we are very focused in these segments. Our approach has been to create a kind of solution platform over time, over the last 10, 15 years. I think as John was talking about, when I joined the company, I realized it's over 20 years. And during that time, we focused on creating the key elements, Lego blocks, as I call it, from, graphics technologies, which was our starting point, to vision and camera and video, to acquiring MIPS as a CPU technology and connectivity, and then creating new enabling technology for cloud through our Flow Cloud initiative. So the idea here for Imagination has been to create world-leading technologies in each area, which particularly focused on being low power, but also we have a very open licensing model. You know, people can mix and match what we have with what they have to create a final solution. I mean, specifically from the point of view enabling the stuff that I talked about earlier, our approach, you can see from my previous slide, is to bring all these technologies which go across, you know, connectivity, multimedia, and processing together, have an ecosystem that makes them easy for people to use, and then our customers can work with us, bring their know-how and technology, and then together, plus, you know, the systems and solutions that will follow, you can target many, many of the markets I've talked about. That's really what we are doing, and part of our activities are also focused on, if you like, the brand creation or technologies to do with software, such as our work with Pure or Flow. And we're actually invested in a number of British companies and US companies and the rest of the world in order to make some of this vision accelerate and happen. So in conclusion, so you can see, you know, from my point of view, I certainly believe that in UK, the electronic system capabilities and technologies we have is very strong, but it is only a platform. You know, we have a number of companies that are successfully operating in that space, but to go beyond that, we really have to understand the food chain or food supply and understand where the money is, what we have to do for UK to succeed on those. I also believe that ESCO is the first time enabling this sector to be visible, to be recognized as a sector, to be recognized and supported by the government as well. And we now have a leadership council. I think I saw Sarah here earlier. We have a CEO. So those of you who want to get to know more about ESCO, you can talk to her. But you know, this is really in support of the electronic system community here. But for me, success would really mean us being able to do a lot more in the food chain that I presented. I think with that, I stop, and I think I've said enough for now. And thank you very much, and apologies for my voice.